Now it's time to take a look at some of the stories making headlines in Nigerian newspapers today. I have a lawyer and social development advocate, Jide Ologun, here in the studio. Jide, good morning.
Good morning.
Great. And I also have public affairs analyst and MD CEO, Perwin Adekunle Akindeji. Adekunle, good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Same here.
All right. So let's begin with the national economy now. The national economy says NLNG pays $9.13 billion in taxes to government. All right, that's the national economy. And from there, let's go to the Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint says PNID, Nigeria's foreign reserve, received $200 million boost. Recession looms as Senate raises the alarm over $14 billion revenue gap. And London court victory gladdening, and that's federal government is saying this. And Buhari presents 12.6 trillion naira 2021 budget next week. Okay, that's monies here and there. All right. From the Blueprint, let's go to Daily Times. Daily Times says reps withdraw controversial water resources control bill. Okay, that's on some of the papers today, and a lot of Nigerians have a reaction to this, certainly. And my guests will be talking about this in just about a minute when we open the discussion. Right? Daily Trust is next now. Daily Trust newspaper says reps to introduce water resources bill. That is what Daily Trust is saying. And bill must come through right channel. And government to blame for poor communication. An expert is saying this. So Daily Times is saying the reps is to introduce water resources bill. That's what Daily Trust rather is saying. All right. Leadership newspaper is talking about something else. Leadership says federal government weeds out 25,000 ghost workers exposed by whistleblowers. The policy should include public safety, violation of human rights. Oshibaju is saying this. And why corruption is fighting back. CSOs are trying to, try to give an explanation there. UK court orders release of $200 million deposit to Nigeria in PNID case. Okay, that's the Leadership newspaper. News Direct is next now. News Direct is on PID issue. Foreign reserves gain $200 million after court ruling. That's a CBN broke the news to Nigerians. And Malami others express appreciation. Okay. All right, that's the News Direct. Okay, let's get into our topic of the day now. Daily Times. The story is on Daily Times, and then it's also on Daily Trust. But there seem to be different perspectives to this. Now, Daily Times says reps withdraw controversial water resources control bill. And that's what will be our focus right now. We have a lawyer in the studio who's certainly going to also give us insight into all of this. Now, Adekunle and Jide, the water resources control bill has been on for some time now. And you recall that this bill surfaced in the 8th Assembly, and one way or the other it was not passed. And then it was reintroduced this time around, but a lot of people said it didn't go through the right channel. Now the House of Reps is withdrawing it. Jide, let me start with you on this. I wonder what you make of this now. Is this the end of things for the water resources bill?
It may not be the end. Okay. The withdrawal, was prompted by procedural issues. But it's good that Nigerians should understand the controversy behind this water resources control bill. Like it says, water resources control, that means the federal government is seeking to control the water on the surface, on the ground, and the banks of rivers in the country. And there are some other provisions. For example, license will be granted to those who will make use of the water, and the licenses can be withdrawn. Before you dig a borehole, if you're a landlord, you need to get an authority. And of course, this is also a revenue issue. And the management via the control. And the big question is that the oil and gas is under the exclusive legislative list. How has Nigeria profited in terms of prospering from the management of the oil and gas? You look at the mineral resources in the country, and the suspicion of mismanagement and regional profiteering may be driving the resistance to this bill. And under the Land Use Act, states can manage the lands in their state. In fact, the position the National Assembly should be pursuing now is to give states the autonomy to manage the resources within their state. For
including
example,
water resources?
And we will not be fighting over the oil region being impoverished, while some people have the oil blocks, because it's a dangerous development, because that means the water resources in Lagos can be handed over to somebody through license. And you know, we have said it, talking about Lagos State, for instance, and I hope the state will rise up to benefit from the huge resources. Do you know that with appropriate management, about 2 billion naira can be generated, maybe even if it's 6 months, from what we have in Lagos? So, and finally on this, I think the suspicion we have towards each other in this country, regionally, is just coming to fore now, because we've suffered through gross mismanagement of resources.
Okay. Now, Adekunle, the point there is, when it comes to introduction of bills, there are procedures in the National Assembly, or any assembly for that matter, on how to introduce bills. And the reports we got initially was that the 8th, for those who introduced this bill in the House, in the 9th Assembly, said that there was a public hearing in the 8th Assembly, so there was no need to have a public hearing again in the 9th Assembly as it's being introduced. But what we know from, what we've been reading is that for any bill, even if it's coming back 10 times, it's a procedure it has to go through. So would you say that this bill was dead on arrival, based on the fact that it did not follow due process?
Yeah, so thank you. Going by due process, I would agree with you to say yes, it's dead on arrival. And the question to have asked is, where is the rush for wanting not to follow the processes? 8th Assembly management and principle are quite different from what you currently have now. It's a new session, it's a new season. Let's allow things to go through its appropriate channel. And what I hear and what I see, I must say, is that we are yet to learn emotional vocabularies as people and as nations. The things that people are saying that the country and the leadership of the country is not listening to. The issue is not whether the federal government wants to take control or the state wants to take control. It's not so much around that. It's to say, the ones that you're currently managing, what have you done with it? And like a popular singer said, say water is life. If we have entrusted you with our other resources and you haven't done quite well with it, are we sure that, what is closer to the common man?
But would it have made a difference
Yes.
if the federal government had managed all the resources under its jurisdiction very well? Would it have mattered as to how this one should go?
Who cares who is managing what? As long as the wealth is distributed amongst people and people are happy. There are countries where all of these things are regulated, but you are sure that the basic infrastructure that you need to get the water from where it is to distribute it to your house is not your responsibilities. So in this case, I'm taking the pain to drill the borehole, to do my roads, to create all of those things. And you still want to come back and ask me to pay taxes and pay licensing and pay all sorts on it. So it's what I hear is the language of trust, that we do not trust you. Okay. We don't think you will handle it.
So you feel Nigerians from their outcry or outburst concerning this and what has made this whole water resources bill controversial, trust Nigerians don't trust the government.
They don't.
As to what they will do with the water resources.
As to what they've done with what they have and what they may likely do with the water resources if it's granted.
All right. Now, Jide, the issue of communication, like so one of the papers put it there as to proper communication. A lot of people from different issues have said that the government have not been communicating well when it comes to telling Nigerians what these things, how they stand to benefit, and then allowing Nigerians buy into it so they can have their way. What do you make of this?
Absolutely. And one, communication takes its root from previous engagements. This water resources control may be connected to the cattle colony that came out at a time.
Well, why do you think they can be connected?
I'm linking it. Okay. The argument for the encroachment of headers, the clashes, is that we have a climate change that is fast eroding the availability of water for cattle rearing. And right now, I can tell Nigerians for free, if you take the pain to check the riverbanks of the countries, some people are already carrying out business activities. What is left out is the legal framework. You see, so, and people are seeing these things. Sometimes some cannot talk. And that's why I'm glad those who are in the National Assembly are beginning to realize now that they are not just there for us, but also for themselves, because they will come back to the society. And like Mr. Kunle brilliantly mentioned, the ones we have entrusted to you, what have we benefited? If today my country is celebrating 60th political independence anniversary tomorrow, in quotes, and my country is the capital of poverty, then we need to begin to ask questions. So we need to watch out who we entrust with the future of this country. Because right now, how much am I paying for electricity? How much am I paying for the pump price of petroleum? Let's assume that state can fix the pump price of petroleum, for example. And if you can set up your own modular refineries, you bring down the prices for people within your state, they can have other resources to engage their businesses and promote prosperity. So Nigerians are beginning to feel that they are under the pain of hardship, and additional ones may not really augur well for us. So if you have not managed what we have entrusted to you in the past, and if it appears that your motive may not be in the interest of the generality of the people, then we expect that those who are representing us, there are 360 House of Reps members, 109 senators representing 200 million Nigerians. And like I keep saying, if they are comfortable there right now, someday they'll be out of that place, back to the society. So let's deal with the insurgency, the banditry. Obviously, right now, the trust capital is very weak for the nation.
All right, now, Adekunle, going forward, I wonder, when it comes to, all right, in introducing a bill, there's usually the public hearing segment. Public hearings are conducted or carried out within the National Assembly. Do you think that that should be expanded? Because if you calculate the number of people who make contributions or submissions to a bill by either saying yes, we endorse, or no, we do not endorse, it's just few persons comparative to the generality of Nigerians. Do you think that should be changed when it comes to what a public hearing for a bill really is or should be?
I think the problem is not about the number of representatives that we have. I think it's about the intention of the people. If you have 5 sincere people in a room that are willing to take decisions that benefits humanity, they will. If you have 1,000 people who wants to go out and carry the placard and say we are fighting for Nigerians, once they get into the room 24 hours later, they will turn back and say we are no longer doing it. Do you understand? So the dynamics is not in the numbers. The dynamics is in the sincerity of our people, understanding why they are there. And that takes us back to where we started from. Electioneering in Nigeria and the way we get our people into offices, then matters. You see, at that point, putting around 1,500 naira doesn't make any difference. But when it gets to places where decision then needs to be taken, your representative then needs to fight for your interest. That's when it matters. So we need to begin to educate our people more than ever before, that for every action and inaction that we take during our electioneering processes have an effect, and that's what we have. And I'm happy that at least for once, we have people who are kicking against the process to say, let's this bill go through the proper, the question is not even whether it's the right thing now or not, but let's even go through the proper process and let's take it from there.
All right, let's head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the national economy. NLNG pays 9.13 billion naira in taxes to government. Let's move now on to the front page of the blueprint. PNID, Nigeria's foreign reserves received $200 million boost. Recession looms as Senate raises the alarm over $14 billion revenue gap. At London court victory gladdening federal government, Buhari presents 126 trillion naira 2021 budget next week. Those stories you find on the front page of the Blueprint. So let's move on quickly to the front page of the Daily Times. Reps withdraw controversial water resources control bill. All right, on the front page of the Daily Trust now, reps to reintroduce water resources bill must come through right channel. Government to blame for poor communication. Expert. That story on the front page of the Daily Trust. All right, quickly now we move to the front page of the Leadership newspaper. Federal government weeds out 25,000 ghost workers exposed by whistleblowers. Policy should include public safety, violation of human rights, Osinbajo, while corruption is fighting back CSOs. UK court orders release of $200 million deposit to Nigeria in PNID case. We will be looking at that story shortly. And finally, on the front page of the News Direct, PNID, foreign reserves again $200 million after court ruling. CBN, Malami, others express appreciation. All right, gentlemen, let's look at the story on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, talking about 25,000 ghost workers exposed by the whistleblower policy. Now, the Minister of Finance talked about this at the National Conference on Whistleblower Policy, where she said that about 25,000 workers were exposed from the MDAs, although there were no details on how they were discovered and what led and how they were weeded out, but she gave the numbers. Are we saying that the whistleblower policy is perhaps working the way it should? I'll start with you, Judy.
The MDAs refer to the ministries, departments, and agencies. And like you rightly mentioned, they were not specifically listed and who were the parties involved. But it's a good one. If you look at Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it says that the state shall abolish corruption and abuse of power. And when you talk about ghost workers, they are otherwise called phantom employees who are on the payroll fraudulently but do not actually carry out any work, and in some situations maybe those who have died, and some people are collecting the money. So obviously some individuals are collecting that money, and that would have brought a deep hole into the economy of the nation. And now the spirit is that a whistleblower bill will be presented, to the National Assembly. But the Vice President is saying, while focusing on the issue of ghost workers, you also look at abuse of human rights, you look at wastage of resources. So there are other issues that are involved, and it's all about fighting corruption. And I can tell you, apart from the dwindling revenue, the stealings, the embezzlement, the sustained corruption is dealing a hard blow on the nation. So, and one other issue we must mention is the fact that now we have heard that 25,000 ghost workers were detected and weeded out by the federal government. Now, how do you prevent
such from
subsequent fraudulent activities if you don't prosecute those who were engaged in this?
And that is where I'm taking my next question, because a lot of persons believe that these statements are being made, but details with regards to how they were detected and what process, what is going to happen afterwards, no full details are being given. Are we really talking about fighting corruption in the direction we should? And that question is being thrown to you, Akindeji, that are we really doing what we should do? Are we just having conversation on the front pages of papers and on social media? We just heard about it, but you're not giving us details.
Yeah, so first, let's give kudos to them that we'd even have the information out as of now, but it's not enough to rejoice about. I mean, just like we've all mentioned. I think that when you, whilst we cannot tell what has transpired, but when you look at the mechanics of ghost working and how it works, the first question to ask is whether MDA, whether the agency, whether the ministry, whatever parastatal that forms there is, someone somewhere have a responsibility to check who has been onboarded as a staff. how they are being paid, how bank account is being opened for them, how their remuneration is being done. So I'll be more interested in the details over what period of time.
Right.
Has this 25,000 people, quote and unquote,
Right.
how much has been expended on the, because once we don't have the details, it makes the whole exercise a joke, right? And then people who, I mean, this is the one you have discovered, there are many in other ministries, in other parastatals that are unknown. Once you set a precedent to say anyone who is caught in this act, whether be a private entity, the banks, the telecoms, I mean, because I suppose that there are instruments of identification that are needed. There are bank accounts that are needed. There are IDs that are needed, you know. So how was it that they were able to perpetrate this in the books, that money were being paid to people that do not exist, quote and unquote, in the book? So I think that the details are necessary. It may be high level, but let's know what ministries are involved in this case and what kind of penalty or kind of...
Because a majority of Nigerians believe that will help build the trust in the system.
Absolutely.
You're smiling. I wonder if you want to react to this. They believe it's going to build the trust.
Yeah, it will absolutely build the trust, but are we engaging it in that serious manner? For example, we have instances where they have been directly mentioned, like the grass cutting scandal of Babachi Lawal.
Right.
How far with the case? Like the Maina case, how far with the case? Several cases. Magu has been accused by the Attorney General of the Federation of misappropriation of recovered properties and other allegations. Has it been prosecuted? You know, those are the issues. And under industrial psychology, you have what is called reinforcement theory. So when all you do is just to mention these crimes and you don't prosecute, you are reinforcing it. I've expressed my concern. My great nation will be 60 tomorrow. The first scandal I read about, I was in the secondary school then, that was in 1972 or so, was the $2.8 billion that disappeared from the NNPC account that eventually was traced to Midland Bank in London. What came out of it? We've had Okuta panel, different, so we need to get serious. And in trying to get serious, we may need to look out of the window and see how things are done in some other countries like South Korea, like China, that have, you know, intolerance for corruption. And maybe when we get to that level, look at Saudi Arabia carrying drugs into that environment. You saw what Nigeria went through trying to fight for some Nigerians not to be beheaded. Indonesia has zero tolerance for drugs, and the president came out to say he's not interested in grammar. Don't bring, you see, so, but you see the reaction
even from some governors when it comes to signing the death penalty, talking about all of that. You see the reaction, the body language, a majority of them are not willing to go in that direction.
They don't want to sleep and be looking at blood dripping on their bed. So, but having said that, I said it, Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says that the state shall abolish corruption and abuse of office. So, and if we don't abolish them, they may abolish our prosperity.
Right.
So, if we are complaining about lean resources, I mean, if you have gone to borrow up to 30 trillion naira, you should be able to block the loopholes.
But
we are not even discussing oil theft now. We are not discussing other issues that are plaguing the countries. You know, recently the government is concerned about dwindling revenue, and they will now want to send directors to Nigerian Customs, FIRS, directors again who may compromise. So can we strengthen our institutions to ensure that we, like Mr. Kule brilliantly mentioned, to have a system that can check all this? I want to admit, I assume, for instance, that the ghost workers are paid through some bank account. What has happened to BVN?
The TSA.
Or do these ghosts really come from the grave? Because it's just an expression. You see, so some people are behind it, cartel. So if we have this in the country, then it's likely also that we have ghost sponsors for Boko Haram, ghost, and you can even see the man that came out to speak, how he's been hunted now by the long arms of the law. So we need to get serious as a nation as we are approaching 60 to ensure that we are back on the track of prosperity, on uniting the nation and making provisions for meaningful enjoyment of this country. That is when we can all claim to be Nigerians. That is when we can all have faith. And, you know, I was looking at the motto of this country. It says unity and faith, peace and progress.
Absolutely. Let's bring Adekunle into this conversation and strengthening the fight against corruption, like he mentioned. And we are looking at having a bill on whistleblowing. How would that strengthen the fight against corruption? What would you expect to be part of this? Because the vice president is talking about the protection of human rights and all of that. What do you intend to see if we say that we are serious about this fight?
So I think it's a good point that the vice president has raised. We don't need a sledgehammer to kill an ant. I mean, in the case of trying to fix a problem, we shouldn't create another. But I sincerely, and I buy the sentiment of Barrister Jide Ologun. Nigeria is going to be 60 tomorrow. And for many Nigerians, it's an emotional period for us. For me in particular, because I shared same date with Nigeria. So even if I don't want to think about it, I have to. But on a more serious note, I think that once we can fix our legal system, a lot of problems we are having in Nigeria will be fixed.
Right.
Because it's good to put policies together, it's good to set up committees, it's good to have certain bills. The issues are not the bills, the issues are the implementations. So what happens if someone is caught, you know, to have passed through what does the law say? Who will implement these laws? There will be examples that are cited that involves powerful people in the legal system. Who is going to charge them? So until we get serious as a nation where we're not just doing things for the fun of it and for the fun of it just to be in the paper, but we're really interested in intrinsic that when things are done inappropriately, these are the sanctions for it. The bill, we hope that when it's enacted and eventually put into proper law, it will help Nigeria because Nigeria is bleeding, as it were. I'm sure you know the nation is broke. And a committee set up, RAMFAC, which is going about trying to see where to close the gaps and the loopholes in revenue generation. The little we have, we need to find a way to use it judiciously. And one of the ways to do that is to strengthen the processes of each of these MDAs that we currently have. When people are caught to have done the wrong thing, let the law prosecute them, and let's make it out there for people to see.
All right, Adekunle Akindeji, we must say happy birthday in advance.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for your time on the
you.
Newspaper Review. Jide Ologun, thank you so much as well for your contribution on the show this morning.
God bless Nigeria.
Absolutely.